Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. We are going to learn a very interesting shiur, very interesting class, a sikha. It's really a sikha of the Rabbi, and it's from Teres Menachem. It's a sikha from the year 1954, from Yitas Kislev Fabrengen. We're going to learn it together with the general background of the sikha. The general idea of the sikha is the idea of bittul, humility, and how important it is to feel completely oneness, humble with Hashem. And the opposite is if somebody feels yeshus, ego. We learn it particularly from the beginning of this week's Parsha, where Yaakov says, "Katointi mikol hachasadim umikol ha'emes." I have become very small. Hashem, you have been so kind to me, and I have become very, very small. Yaakov, morning, Mike. Yaakov was coming back from the house of Lavan. He escaped Haran, and now he's coming back to Eretz Yisrael, and his brother Esav is very angry at him. And why is Esav angry? Because Yaakov used deceit to receive the blessings from his father Yitzchak. So when Esav comes to greet Yaakov with 400, or it could be 16,000, according to the Medrash, men to fight Yaakov. Yaakov's coming back with his entire family. And when Yaakov hears what Esav is doing, he becomes very scared, and he prepares in three different ways. One is by sending Esav many gifts. One is with hoping to sort of bribe Esav to calm him down. He prepares to fight with Esav, and after he prepares all the preparations, then he davens to Hashem. So we'll read the pasuk. Vayemer Yaakov. Yaakov says when he's davening to Hashem, Elokei Avi Avraham, the Eibishter, the God of my father Avram, Elokei Avi Yitzchak, and the God of my father Yitzchak. Hashem ha'omer Elai. Hashem who has said to me, go back to your birthplace and it'll be good for you. Katointi, I have become small. Mikol hachasadim and mikol ha'emes asher asisa es avdecha. Morning, Mr. Minsky. Thank you for joining. Hashem, I have become small from all the kindness and truth you have done for me. For when I crossed the Yarden, I crossed the river, I crossed only with a stick, or through his stick, as the other Pirush explanation is. Now Hashem, you have made me great. I have two camps of people. Hashem, please save me from the hand of my brother Esav. I'm afraid of him. And Rashi says, when Yaakov says to Hashem, I have become small, he says, Nismatu zichu yosai. Hashem, my merits have become small. Hashem, you have done so much good for me. I'm scared that my merits, I don't have much left in the tank to earn, to deserve anything. Therefore, I am afraid. Shema, perhaps, from when you have promised me that I will be good to you, perhaps I have messed up and I am not worthy and deserving of your blessings. And you have caused me, and it will cause me to be delivered into the hands of Esav. So Yaakov Avinu's prayer to Hashem is a symbol of anava, being humble, being modest. He didn't come to Hashem, Hashem, you promised me you'll be good. I demand that you keep your promise. He didn't mention to Hashem, Hashem, I suffered so much in the house of Lavan, and therefore you must be good to me. He didn't say, Hashem, I was so careful in the mitzvahs. I did so good. Everything, and I don't deserve to have any bad coming to me. He started off speaking to Hashem. Hashem, Katoiti, I've become small. I am nothing. And I have no merits whatsoever. Because any merits I do have would have been used up. So he came out of a sense of submission to Hashem, subservience to Hashem, and therefore he asked Hashem to save him and his family. So the idea will be a lead up to a sikha of the Rabbi on Yitas Kislev, Tafshin Tazayin, 1955. So let's continue along. Source number 2. It says the Masechta Baba Kama, a discussion in the Gemara between Rabba Bar Mari and Rava. So here it brings on the side Rabba Bar Mari. He was in the 3rd generation of Amirayim. He studied Torah from Rabbi Shua ben Levi and Rabbi Yechanan, and he was one of Rava's teachers. Rava was with 4th generation of Amirayim, and he was the Rosh Yeshiva in Pumbedisa. And Rava, of course, discusses with Abaya several thousand times in Shas. And almost all of the time, the halacha is like Rava, except there's 6 cases in Yal Kagam where the halacha is like Abaya. Yal is Yish Lamidas, etc. There's 6 times halacha is like Abaya, but almost always halacha is like Rava. So Rava is one of Rabbi Bar Mari's teachers in Agadata, in like the exposition of Torah, is Rava. Rava told Rabbi Bar Mari, Minayin davar zeh, from where is a popular saying, which people would say. We see the Torah takes into account popular sayings of people. When we were small, we were considered to be people. Now that we're large, we're considered to be children. So where is it from? Amar lo, he told him, Yesh raya ladavar, there's a proof. He Mitchila Namar says in the beginning, that Hashem made them go, Hashem led the Jewish people in the desert. When they left Mitzrayim, he led them with a pillar of fire in the desert and a cloud to show them the way. Hashem himself had to guard over the Jewish nation. And later on, after some time in the desert, about a year, and the Jewish people sinned, and after a year, they're grown up already. Nemar, it says, I will send an angel in front of you to guard you on the way. Mashma malach v'lo Hashem atzmai. Meaning, an angel will go in front of us and not Hashem himself. So the popular saying that when we were young, we were considered to be men, and now that we're old, we're considered to be children, means, you could, if you want to sort of say it in modern language, is that the young think everything belongs to them. The world belongs to the young. They think that, and also what happens in the world also belongs to them. Everything in the world comes from Torah, including any saying or any aspect in the world. So Rava is saying that the culture which people have is that they respect young people also originates from the Torah. Look out there in the world. Who do they respect? They respect a young movie star. They respect a young athlete. They respect a young sports person. And as soon as they hit a certain age, they have the expiration date and they go for the next one. So it has a source in the Torah. When the Jewish people were young, they were just leaving Mitzrayim, Hashem led them. And afterwards, Hashem told the Jewish people I will send a malach, an angel, meaning they don't need Hashem himself because we're older. We can figure it out by ourselves, so to speak. Okay, source 3 is saying Hashem, the Jewish Hashem sending the fire and a pillar of fire and a cloud of glory to lead the Jewish people. After the 10 Commandments, after the Yidden received the Torah, Hashem says that from now on, I will send a malach, an angel, to lead the Jewish people. Inyan zeh. There's a lesson for us over here. That Torah allows in certain situations. This is quoting from the Tzemach Tzedek. The Torah itself allows for a situation where the state of children, the state of being immature, is needed in order to attain the state of being adults. It says I think in Habakkuk that Hashem says, because the Jews were young, I have loved them. Hashem is explaining, why does he love the Jewish people? Because they are young. You love always a cute child, your cute neighbor, your cute nephew. When they're young, they're cute. You like them. They get older. Not necessarily do you like them anymore. So to speak, what the Navi is saying is that Hashem loved the Jewish people because they were so young. Because of the fact that they were young, that they were small, because they did not feel themselves to be important, that's why Hashem loves them. This is like a parent that loves a child, loves a newborn. Some people like young children, they love children. That same person is an adult. Rabbi Twersky, Olav Hashalom, said over a story once that in his house when he was growing up in Milwaukee, so there are many mishalachim, many people collecting money, which will go around to all the cities, and they did not have an easy lot, especially in America. People did not respect them too much. And so, but in their house, they welcomed all the meshulachim, all of the tzedakah collectors. And so one time, one of the meshulachim who were in their house, saying that they would stay there, they would eat there. And so there was a child in the house who was starting to learn how to walk, and he was taking the first steps. And the child took the first few steps, and everyone started saying, "Yay!" clapping and cheering. So the Meshulach said, when I was young, when I took my first step, also everybody was clapping and cheering. Now I can walk very well. When people see me coming, they close the doors and they get scared. Don't let them in. Stay away. Because when people, the little people, is the ones that people love. They don't have an ego. They have humility. And their Tzemach Tzedek continues, and he brings a medrash explaining this, that illustrates this point. Amar Rabbi Zarya Mishum Rabbi Yehuda ben Rabbi Simon, Moshel Mahadavar Doima. To what can this be compared? Lemelech Basar V'Dam. This is a medrash which says that there was a king which had Bas. He had a daughter who he loved very much. When his daughter was very young and she was a child, he would talk with her in public. He saw her The king saw her in the courtyard. He would run to greet her and talk to her. Kivin Shigdila. Once she grew older, Amar Melech, the king said, it is not honorable for my daughter I should talk to her in public. I will make for her a private chamber, a pavilion. When I want to talk to my daughter, I will do so in private. When a little child is very cute, but when they get older, they want some privacy, and it's more respectable or honorable for the daughter to speak to the king in private. Kach k'shira Kadosh Baruch Hu es Yisrael b'Mitzrayim hayu na'arim. When Hashem saw the Jewish people in Egypt, they were also small. Shenemar, it says, Kinar Yisrael ohaveyu. The Jews are the young children who Hashem loves. When Mitzrayim, it was Hashaya, Karasi Livni. And from Mitzrayim, Hashem says, I have spoke to my children. What does that mean? Shenemar, where did Hashem speak to us? He spoke to us when we crossed the Yamsuf, when we crossed the sea. And Hashem spoke to us again by Har Sinai when he gave us a Torah. By the sea, Hashem spoke to us when we crossed the Yamsuf, the Sea of Reeds. Shenamar, as it states, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. Hashem spoke to Moshe, Ma titzak Eloi. Why do you cry out to me? Ra oisem b'Sinai. Hashem saw them in Har Sinai. And Hashem would talk to them. Hashem spoke to us face to face on Har Sinai. Once we received the Torah, so once we matured, and we became a complete nation. Amru, and the people said, Kol asher diber Hashem na'aseh v'nishma. Whatever Hashem does, we'll do and we will listen. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem says, Ein shivchon shel banai she'ayem medaber imahem b'farhesya. It is not praiseworthy if I would speak to my children in public, meaning they have matured. And asli mishkan, make a mishkan for Hashem, a tabernacle. When I wanted to talk to the Jewish people, I will speak to them from the Mishkan, which they built. This is what it says. When Moshe will come to the tent of meeting to speak to Hashem, Hashem will not talk to him everywhere. Rather, there were times when Moshe Rabbeinu would go to count the Jewish people, and he went to count the Kohanim. Hashem would tell him at the entrance of the tent how many people were there. But Moshe Rabbeinu had to go around. But generally, Hashem only spoke to Moshe in private in the Mishkan from then on. Now, if you have a child, so when you're traveling together on a plane, so when the child is young, they want to sit next to the parents. When the child is a little older, so then they want to sit in their own area, they have their own independence on the plane, and they could be not next to them. And it's like that in everything. If you're staying somewhere, they need their own room or a different room, and so on. So what we see from here is that the love of Hashem is expressed to the Jewish people, specifically when they're younger. The more you understand, the more you become sophisticated, the more you mature. So then Hashem says, I will not deal directly with them. I will send them a malach, an angel. I will speak to them in private. So this is starting a sicha from Yutas Kislev, 1955, Tashrin Tes Zayin. So to explain this concept, based on the teachings of Chassidus, which will add clarity to everything. And most importantly, to discuss the practical lesson, and for our divine service of Hashem in Torah and the mitzvah, so we can learn from this. And to explain this, Isa b'Gemara says in the Gemara, this is a Masechta Saita, any person which has arrogance, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem says, Ein ani v'hu yichaylim lador ba'olam. Him and I cannot dwell together in the world. Let's look at the Gemara in Masechta Saita. From Rav Chisda, he was from the second and third generation of Amirayim. He was actually very wealthy, and he barely slept, and he said he learned day and night, and he would sell wine for a living, and sheikhar, and beer, liquor for a living, and he's one of the people who composed Tfilas Haderech, the prayer that you recite when you travel. And Rav Chisda lived a very, very long life. So Rav Chisda, any person who has arrogance, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, says Hashem, Hashem says, I cannot dwell together with anybody who has arrogance. Shenemar, as it says, Milashni in Tehillim, Milashni Vaseser Re'ehu. So Milashni is someone who says Lashon Hara, slander, in secret. Hashem says, I will cut him down. Gvainayim, someone whose eyes are high, and his heart is expansive. I cannot be with him. Einai b'nemnei eretz l'sheves imadi. And I do pay attention. I look at those who are faithful, and those I live with. So in the words you have, I cannot handle him. You can say itoi, with him I cannot be. Meaning Hashem says I cannot live, I cannot be in a place where people have arrogance. In many places, but the Gemara, Chassidus especially, Yiddishkeit, Jewish sources strongly criticize being arrogant. About someone who says Lashon Hara, says, I will destroy him. But about someone who's arrogant, Hashem says, I cannot tolerate him. So to speak, the only way to push away Hashem is everywhere. And so to speak, the only way to push away Hashem is by arrogance, by gaiva. So, to continue the Sikha of the Rebbe, Hainu, Shemitzadze, because Shemitziyuso tefeses because people, if a person feels so important about himself, the ad leregesh shel gaiva, until a person feels a sense of self-importance, of arrogance, the polar opposite of being humble. So first of all, he is not doing his mission. He's failing to do his purpose. Why Hashem created him? Hashem wants to dwell in this world. And he is pushing away Hashem by feeling arrogant. In addition to that, Even in a place where Hashem is in this world and is revealed and is comfortable, he is destroying and pushing away Hashem's Shechina presence from everywhere in the world through Gaiva. Because we cannot dwell together. A person who is selfish, a person who thinks about himself all the time, is self-absorbed, so they cannot focus on what they're needed for, on making the world a divine place. Worse, he pushes away Hashem. If you have a player on a team, and he wants to be the star of the team, he wants to earn the most points, he's going to take every shot in order to have the record of making the most points. Such a person is going to destroy the entire team. If they don't listen to the coach, if they don't listen to the directors of the team, they're going to destroy the entire team. Their sense of self-importance, first of all, they will not be successful in the future. But even more than that, even in a place where Hashem does dwell, having Gaiva pushes away Hashem's feeling from these places. Obviously, it doesn't push away Hashem. Hashem is everywhere. And what it means is it pushes away Hashem's presence, the feeling of Hashem. There's a story once of the Apter Rav. Rabbi Avinu Yeshua Heschel Tversky, I think was his last name. So he one time came to a certain city. He was from the times of the Mittler Rebbe, meaning in the early 1800s, 1810s, about. Very, he's called the Oyev Yisrael, the lover of Jews. Very unique personality. A very big tzaddik. So he one time traveled through a certain city, and two of the richest people in the city wanted him to stay there. And they were both equal. Both were nice places to stay. One of them, it says about one of them, there are rumors going about him that he did a certain sin in the marital sphere. But he acknowledged what he did wrong, and he was a very pleasant person, humble person, a modest person. The second person, no one had anything bad to say about him, but he was known as a very arrogant person. Maybe he came with the wealth that he had. And the Apter Rav chose to stay in the home of the first person. The one who sinned, but was a humble and a pleasant and a modest person. Because it says, when he was asked about it, he explained, says Hashem says, I cannot dwell in the midst of somebody, someone who has arrogance. I cannot dwell together with them. If Hashem can't dwell with them, I can't be with them either. The first man, even though he was known to have sinned, but Hashem says, I dwell with the Jewish people even if they sinned. Even if they're defiled, even if they're tummy, they're impure, I dwell with them. If Hashem could dwell among sinners, then I can be among them as well. So therefore, the Apter Rav chose to specifically stay in the home of the one who was more humble, even though they weren't, as you could say, of a good reputation as the second one. So humility is a key for Hashem's presence. You want Hashem to dwell, you need to be humble. According to this, you could explain, and we skipped a little. And just as it is in matters of holiness, so the more one adds in holiness, so then there's less negativity. Person, to focus on fighting the evil or the wrong is you're not going to get as far as if you focus on doing good, and the not good side of us just will disappear. Al derech zeh lehepech. So too the other hand, and the shekadei lemay binyan mishakadusha yesh laharbis be'er b'chaye shluma zeh yesh laharbis be'er b'chaye shekadusha. Holiness causes the negative forces to decline in power. Keinu gam b'inyan shel hepech hayeshus. In our case, we could say the same thing. The more we increase in humility, so then Hashem's presence will be revealed in our world, to make a dwelling place for Hashem. So Hashem listens and Hashem loves to humble people. There was a chassid of Tzemach Tzedek who one time complained to Tzemach Tzedek, and he says, everybody in shul is stepping on me. Nobody's respecting me. Everyone is stepping on me. So Tzemach Tzedek answered to this chassid, and he says, who told you to spread yourself out across the entire shul? And that's why, because you're spread out, wherever people step, it's on you. What does that mean? It means that who asked, because of your haughtiness, because of the fact that you, are so injecting yourself everywhere, you're so self-important, that's why people don't have respect for you. So respect that people have is because of their humility. You could explain the saying of the Gemara. Karavenan zutri legavri hashad kashishna ledardiki. The saying of the Gemara we had earlier. When we were young, we were considered men, and now that we're larger, we are considered to be children. Now that we are old, we are considered to be children. Hashem, how it pertains to our service of Hashem. Karkashishna, what it means is when we're old, hainu. What does it mean old? Jewish years don't go according to your passport. Your age on your passport does not determine how old you are Jewishly. In Torah years. If a person is old in the Torah's terms, that means Torah could say that he is gadol b'Torah v'chachma, he is an elder, he is advanced in holiness and wisdom, in Torah knowledge. Since his neshama is vested in a body, it is unavoidable his greatness will cause him to feel a degree of self-importance. And it will be very difficult for a person who is of great advanced knowledge or wisdom, holiness, to negate his sense of self, to feel how his soul is completely subservient, completely like dust. So when one is older, when one is feeling advanced, I'm feeling great, so then it's very easy to feel important. It says when we were small, we were considered to be men. True, when it came to Torah wisdom, we were considered to be very small. On the other hand, we possessed humility when we were younger, when we were not so advanced. That's a very great thing which we don't possess yet. Hashem says I dwell with those who are crushed and humble in spirit. It was, I think, Rabbi Shiur ben Levi, when he went up to Shemayim, and later on they asked him, what is the world? The world of truth. And he says, it's an opposite world. Those who are great in this world are nothing in the world to come. And those who are nothing in this world are great in the world to come. And he told him, you've seen a straight world. Those who don't hold themselves haughtily, that is where Hashem dwells. The Shechina is much more apparent. The Shechina rest, Hashem's presence is revealed the most in those who are humble. So this is, you could say, a sort of a paradox in people, in humans. The more you require wisdom and Torah knowledge, your feelings of self-importance usually grow. And such a person can find it difficult to be nullified in the presence of Hashem. Quoting the pasuk in Yeshaya, Kichai Amar Hashem Ram Nisa. This is the Haftarah, I think, Chanukah. Hashem, the exalted and high one, says, Shechen Ad V'Kadosh Shemoi, who dwells to eternity, whose name is holy. Marei V'Kadosh Ashkan, with the lofty and holy ones I dwell. Hashem says, I stay among tzaddikim, and I dwell with those who are humble. To revive the spirit of the humble, and to revive the heart of those who are crushed. Continue with the Sikha of the Rebbe. Zehu Remez. And this is implication in the words, but Divrei Gemara, in the words of the Gemara. Meikarak Siv, in the beginning, it says the Jewish people were in the desert. They were still young, not yet mature. And so therefore, it says Hashem hoylech lifneim, and Hashem walked in front of them. Which is implied that when a person is small, when a person is humble, then the Shechina can rest on them. Certain things are a cure for everything. Like you have a master key, can open up any key, any door in the place. You don't need a separate door for every door in the building. You have a master key. Similar thing. If a person does exercise, a doctor tells you exercise will help you for everything. It will help your physical health, your mental health. One thing could improve in every single area. Eating properly, sleeping properly. No matter what you're sick with, what field you work in, how much you weigh, eating healthy will be very good for you. Similar, Chassidus teaches us that humility opens up all the doors for us. Gaiva, arrogance, is a worse. There's a vart from the Baal Shem Tov which says that there's one thing which is not a sin, not an avera, but it brings you to worse than any avera, any sin, and one thing which is not a mitzvah, but could make you refine more than any mitzvah. And gaiva, arrogance, is not a sin, but it can bring you to worse, to do the worse than any of the sins. And mikvah, going to the mikvah, is not a mitzvah for men, but it could refine you more than all the mitzvahs. Think about it for yourself. Who do you want to be a friend with? Do you want to be a friend with someone who is arrogant? Someone, when you talk to them, they always dominate the conversation. They don't give you a chance to talk. They don't consider your feelings. Right? What type of spouse, how would you like your spouse to act? Someone who doesn't validate you, only talks about themselves the whole day? If you could choose who you work with, which coworkers would you choose? Someone who is arrogant, nobody around them could bear them, could handle them. A person's ego could destroy relationships, could destroy pleasant environments. Someone who is humble, people have no issue being around. Person who has a lot of gaiva, arrogant, feels that everything belongs to me, everyone owes me. When they don't get what they expected, they're angry, they're hurt. And it eats them up from the inside. They're so angry from the inside. They're never satisfied because they expect more. I deserve more. Nothing's good enough for them. Someone who's humble doesn't feel anybody owes me anything, doesn't feel I deserve. All my friends are traveling on 5-star vacations. I'm not. They don't feel anyone. They don't feel they deserve. They don't feel anybody owes them anything. They're not upset if they're not respected properly. Their self-worth is not based on the environment around them. Their self-worth of a humble person is from themselves. They have a rich world inside of them. Their own resiliency. They're not based on the world around them. We'll go into levels of humility, greater detail. In regards to bittul, there are many different levels. There is a state of nothingness, which is that it does not exist at all. As it states, who are we? Moshe Rabbeinu himself was the most humble person who ever lived. Moshe Rabbeinu said about himself, what are we? Moshe Rabbeinu was the most humble person, the example, the textbook example of humility. He was genuinely considered himself to be unimportant. And then there are those who aren't on a level like that. You have the level of humility of Avram, Sha'amar, which he says, I am dust and ashes. He said to Hashem, he is not completely self-nullified like Moshe, who says, I don't exist. Rather, there is a minimal level of existence. I am like dust. Dust is a very lowly substance. People walk on it, but it still is something. Then there's another level. You have also the level of humility of King David, of David HaMelech. He was very humble. As he says, I was very quiet, my soul is quiet. And he says, I am a worm and not a person. Hainu, he wasn't on the level of Rabbi Avinu, which said, I am like dust. Dust is a non-moving, the lowest level of being, an inanimate object, a daimim. But he says, I am like a telas, I'm like a worm, which is a chai, a living animal, a living kingdom. It's not a compliment, certainly, to be considered like a worm, but it's still a step above Avram Avinu, which says, I am like dust. And the rest of us, she'enam b'dargas amarkava k'maya avos. Now, there said David, and for those of us who are not on the level of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, David, Moshe. David is one of the wheels of the chariot of Hashem, the Merkava. So Merkava is totally nullified to the rider. So could simple people like us ever aspire to be like Avram Avinu, like humble like Avram and David and Moshe Rabbeinu? Nam, yes. Mitzad Inyan shall nar Yisrael shlim tzayin b'mayim nemasav shall katna zutri afsha katna simnigela v'ana v'asagam kamakam mitzad shifas shir sa'if m'inyan zegufin asasa iligadu l'gavri. Because of this idea, it says nar Yisrael, because the Jews are young, even if we are small in terms of our knowledge of Torah, this causes us to be humble, in turn raises us to a level where we consider to be like men. So yes, because we realize how far we are from the ultimate holiness and the great holiness of our ancestors, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, David, this causes us to feel humble. And this can create the bittul that we are so much waiting, so much striving for. So bittul could be because we are so low. That's why we have more bittul. The more a person is humble, the more they can understand Torah. We say in Shemona Esrei every single day, and my soul is like dust. Open my heart to your Torah. Being humble is a way to absorb Torah. Anshe Knesset Agdola, the men of the Great Assembly, they're the ones who structured our davening. And it's a process. We go from gradual, emotional, intellectual process till eventually we reach the ultimate state of bittul, self-nullification during Shemona Esrei. Moeda'ani is the beginning of the day when we thank Hashem for the simple blessings that He gives on us. Then we contemplate in Psuki de Zimra, and Chachris, the wonders of Hashem, and then Shema, to realize Hashem's greatness and to prepare us for the required bittul, nullification, to stand before Hashem in prayer. We find about Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. We've had them many times. Beis Shammai students and Hillel students, halacha is almost always like Beis Hillel. Usually Beis Hillel tends to be lenient. Halacha is almost always like Beis Hillel. Why were they merited that halacha is like them? It says about Beis Shammai that they were sharper, that they had a deeper analysis, deeper understanding in Torah. So why was halacha like Beis Hillel? They were agreeable. They agreed to be embarrassed. They agreed to they would always listen to the words of Beis Shammai first. Because of their humbleness, halacha was like them. Not just as a reward for being humble, but also in a physical sense. Because they were humble, therefore they were able to take into account the other person's opinion. So true in intellectual capacity, they did not have as much intellectual prowess like Beis Shammai. But in their approach to learning, they were more humble than Beis Shammai. So the more a person increases knowledge of Torah, it could increase their haughtiness. I am the main thing here. Beis Hillel, although they had a lot of knowledge in Torah, but they also had a lot of humility. They were ready to be overspoken by someone else, and therefore the halacha is like them. So too, Amar Rab Abba, Amar Shmuel. Rab Abba says in the name of Shmuel, Shalish Shanim Nechku Beshamai Besilel. For 3 years, Beshamai and Besilel disagreed. Halalu Emrim Halacha Kameseinu, Valalu Emrim Halacha Kameseinu. Beshamai would say the halacha is like us. Besilel would say the halacha is like us. Yatza Baskal ve'amra, and a divine voice emerged and proclaimed, and said, Elu ve'elu divrei elikim Chaim, this and this are both words of living God. Halacha kebeis Hillel, but and however the halacha is in accordance with Beis Hillel. Since Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel both were saying the words of a living God, why did Beis Hillel merit that the halacha should be in accordance with their opinion? They were agreeable, they were forbearing. They studied their own teachings, and they studied also the teachings of Beis Shammai. They mentioned the statements of Shammai before their own. So we see humility adds on in Torah knowledge. Humility adds on to our davening. When it comes to davening, Tfilas Shmin Esrei Tzricha Liyas B'Tachlis Habitul. Davening Shmin Esrei Lamida, the standing prayer, must be with the ultimate self-nullification. Ke'avda kamei mari, like a servant before their master. She'ena yachol lozos v'mekayma, we stand because we don't sit in front of our master. We don't move from our place, like a servant does not move in front of their master. And akadekach, and we don't even speak in front of our master. Shafilu dibar tefila atzma yu ba'ofen she'adnai svasak tiftach v'yagatil sachach. By Shemona Esrei, we are unable to open our mouth. And instead, at the beginning, Shemona Esrei, we request from Hashem, Hashem, open my lips, and my mouth shall declare your praise. Hainu, shatfila shalanu, tiyekaoine acher hakoyre. Our prayer should be that we're answering Hashem. When we dive into Hashem, we speak to Hashem directly. And our emotions and our feelings have to be commensurate with this. We need to talk to Hashem like we're having a conversation, because we're having a private audience with Hashem during Shemona Esrei. So to get ourselves there, we have a gradual process. First is Moida'ani, a thanking Hashem, and then throughout davening, we thank Hashem for every detail of the world. We give tzedakah, which elevates us. Mikveh elevates us. And we become aware of Hashem's greatness till we stand before Hashem during davening. Amnam, kedei lifol bitol zeh. Sometimes we could feel that even after all of this, we don't feel a bittul by davening, even Shemona Esrei. When people feel that I'm old, oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I know everything. Same old. What are you telling me? That is a feeling of someone who is old. If someone is young and they don't know everything yet, it's when a person is young, meaning they're in like the situation the Mittel Rebbe says about a poor person, whether poor in a physical sense, poor in a spiritual sense. He doesn't need meditation to feel humility, poor or broken during davening. As soon as he recalls how poor he is, or how difficult, how far away he is, he's going to cry to Hashem. He doesn't need contemplation to realize that. Similar in our concept, it's that So we have to contemplate in all the different stages of davening until we build in ourselves to be nullified a bittul to Hashem. When a person davens, a person has to feel a complete nullification. A great person who's filled with wisdom, knowledge, achievements, they find it harder to achieve the same emotional state of self-nullification. They need to work very hard and meditate deeply in order to reach this. A small person who's not so wise, does not have achievements, is more readily capable of achieving the required level of self-nullification. Like we say, Kain ba'kodesh chazi sicha. David HaMelech cried to Hashem, Hashem, I wish I could long to you in the same way I longed to you when I was helpless, running away, a fugitive in the desert. You see by many people who said that they wish they could daven now the same way they davened when they, Shalom Mordechai Rabashkin, when he was arrested, he says he wishes he could daven now the way he davened then. Chassidim, which were in Russia under communism, they say that they wish they had the same tefillos, the same davenings that they had when they were there. I read an account of this is one of the concentration camps, and they described the davening that they had in the concentration camp, and they said there never was a davening like that before or after. So when it's a hard situation, when you're in a low situation, it's easy to achieve an emotional state of bittul, non-self-importance. When you're not in that situation, you need to work very hard and meditate deeply to reach this. We're almost done. Another from here we see when a person feels themselves as small, a person feels, you're the big rabbi, I'm the nothing. So then at least use it out for kedusha, for holiness. To make them feel humble. Not a humility, a false humility, but rather a real humility. Through this, a person, true humility is a conduit for incomparably greater success in studying Torah, in davening, in fulfilling mitzvahs. You find an improvement in every area of your life. So this is a meaning of when we were young, we considered to be like men. So the lesson we learned is the great importance of humility, bittul, for everybody, for all of us. First, it makes a space for Hashem to rest. Second of all, it causes us to reach greater achievements in Torah. Similar to Beis Hillel, the students of Hillel, halacha was like them with their opinion because of their great humility they had. Third of all, it makes it easier during davening to achieve humility in front of Hashem, which is the entire backbone of davening. It's also good for your personal relationships when a person feels humble, and it improves every aspect of their life. One time, there was somebody who was asked, a wise person was asked, why is it that adults always have grudges against people, but children don't have grudges? How many times do children come over to you and say, I hate you, Tati, I hate you, Mommy, I'm never going to talk to you again? Happens all the time, I can tell you that. And less than 5 minutes later, the child is hugging the mother and hugging the father, or they give them a little hug or a little ice cream, and they're best of friends again. When the child says, I wish I had a different mother, or Mommy, I hate you, and 5 minutes later, the mother gives a hug, she's the best mother in the world, again. If an adult says, I'm never going to talk to you again, they mean what they say. They won't even talk to you again 15 years later. And they won't even invite them to the grandchild's bar mitzvah. Why? Because 15 years ago, you said something, or there was a misunderstanding, and I don't talk to them again. I don't go into that place again. I don't go to that shul. I don't, adults hold grudges, and they really hold it, for real. So that doesn't really make any sense. A child is a child. Children are childish. Adults are mature. So an adult should be able to get over a grudge for such an unreasonable period of time.
Rabbi, I think it's because the ego, as we get older, our ego.
Exactly. You got it right. Children would rather be happy than be right. Adults would rather be right than be happy. We don't want to, like the Rabbi Yossi is saying, we don't want to have anything touch our ego. I'd rather be miserable my whole life as long as my ego is not hurt. I'll be right. I'm not going to talk to my uncle. He's not going to talk to his brother-in-law for 25 years because of a fight. Remember, there were two big chazanim, Jewish singers, sang a lot of Jewish chazanim, or brother-in-laws, Jan Pierce and Richard Tucker, and they were in a fight and did not talk to each other in years. I'm not going to call him up. I'm not going to ever say I'm sorry, because I'm right. I'll rather be miserable than be right. My ego will be uncompromised. So we can learn that from a child as well. They don't have, they'd rather be happy. They'd rather have the bittul, the ego. So that is something we learned from this week's Parsha, the specialty importance of bittul, of self-nullification, especially right after Yutes Kislev, the big Yom Tov of the year, when Alter Rebbe was freed from prison. There's a big fabrengen, a suda, a sit-down meal, going to be Yirmiyah Hashem Tuesday night. All the Chabad houses getting together, and all the shuls getting together. When Alter Rebbe, after Yutes Kislev, the first thing he wrote was these words: "Katainti mikol hachasadim." It's in Tanya, in Igeres HaKodesh, second letter. I'm small, I became small and humble. Hashem showed me kindness and I became small and humble. Now, I didn't feel that because of the miracles Hashem showed to him, he became great. But rather, like Yaakov said, Hatainti, I have become humble from this. And he's telling Chassidim in turn to also be humble and to be nullified, not to try showing how you won over your adversaries. So everyone should have a very good Shabbos and a simcha and a happiness. Mirza Hashem, and shakoyach everybody for joining.